Well, Krishnan, something of a circus atmosphere here behind me. Certainly, though, there are more media here than there are Donald Trump detractors or supporters. We know that he's left, he's en route in his plane, that he will arrive and enter underneath this courthouse here behind me. He'll have his fingerprints taken and then he will appear in front of a judge who will read him those charges. En route, as you said, he took time to post on his social Truth social platform that he was about to be arrested, full caps, for protesting what he again repeated was a crooked election. Unfair venue, he said, unfair judge. But there is no doubt that this is a historic moment in US history, not least because it is happening just steps away from where tens of thousands of his supporters stormed the Capitol building on January the 6th in his name, and also because it's the first time a former president will be charged with crimes that he allegedly committed while in office. So the stakes today, Krishnan, could not be any higher.
Many believe this moment might never come, that Donald Trump would be forced to enter a federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. as defendant Trump. Forced to answer for his actions that prosecutors believe helped fuel the deadly riot on January the 6th, 2021, just steps away at the Capitol. But 2.5 years on, and with police and media on high alert, that's exactly the spectacle America is today braced for.
Boom! Bam! The good news of all of what they're doing is that Donald Trump's going to go up 5 points in the polls like he's done for every other indictment.
I really see this indictment as a total joke, total misleading. It is trying to accuse Trump of causing havoc, and he never were trying to cause havoc at all.
Trump left his golf course in New Jersey en route to DC this afternoon, knowing as he did so that he faces, yet again, the ignominy of fingerprints and criminal charges. But these, without doubt, are the most serious of all. That he, as the sitting president, allegedly committed the unthinkable in conspiring to defraud his own country, allegedly using pervasive and destabilizing lies in a desperate bid to overturn the results of the election and cling to power.
The attack on our nation's capital on January 6th, 2021 was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy.
At the heart of this case is the prosecutor's assertion that Donald Trump deliberately disregarded the truth.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen.
That he knew his claims of a stolen election were false. Everyone around him had told him so, but he continued to spread them anyway. And when all his alleged schemes had failed, he took advantage of the violence and chaos at the Capitol here that day to attempt to try and disrupt the certification of Joe Biden as president and hold power for himself. And in that sense, the prosecution claims this case is far bigger than even Donald Trump. It's about protecting the bedrock, they say, of American democracy, the right of free and fair elections.
Yeah, at first I wasn't sure, but I have come to believe that he knew well that he had lost the election.
Trump's Attorney General didn't dare publicly criticize his boss at the time, but last night appeared to have made his mind up.
You read through the indictment and his behavior in that indictment, and it's nauseating. It's despicable behavior.
And then there's Mike Pence, the former vice president who's now standing against Trump to be the next president, who also appears to have seen the light.
The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued.
Democracy's been on the docket here before.
High-level campaign of political sabotage, apparently unparalleled in American history.
In the early 70s, staffers to then President Nixon were tried here for their role in the Watergate scandal, where operatives broke into the Democratic National Committee headquarters in D.C. that would eventually lead to Nixon's resignation in 1974. But even by those standards, what is about to happen here today is potentially more momentous. That a former president will be charged with spearheading multiple criminal conspiracies in an alleged scheme to cling to power, while at the same time bidding to become the nation's president once again.
Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Donald Trump's spokeswoman, Liz Harrington. Thank you very much for joining us on Channel 4 News tonight. When you hear the former Attorney General, the most senior lawman, Bill Barr, saying Donald Trump knew he'd lost and that the freedom of speech is not a defense, it's about what he did, not what he said. And when you see the vice president talking about crackpot lawyers who surrounded Donald Trump trying to persuade him to reject votes, do you wonder if you're on the right side?
No, absolutely not. There were so many falsehoods in that news package just now that I don't even quite know where to begin. When you talk about a conspiracy to defraud the American people, I mean, that's what this indictment is. That's what the Russiagate hoax was. For 4 years, they tried to overturn the results of an election by trying to frame President Trump by spying on his campaign and then framing him for Russia collusion when it was what Hillary Clinton had done. So talk about a conspiracy to defraud the American people. That is what this corrupt government has been doing since day one against President Trump.
I'm talking about
and our
Mike
supporters.
Pence and Bill Barr, who were Trump supporters. The vice president and the attorney general. This is not Joe Biden. This is Trump supporting politicians and officials.
They're clearly not Trump supporters now, and maybe they never were. I mean, it's really stunning. I mean, are we a constitutional republic, or do we have to bend the knee at the altar of what the deep state wants you to believe? I mean, what
but the deep state is just an invention. It doesn't mean anything.
What Bill Barr says is not gospel, and he's wrong. President Trump had every right to object to a crooked and fraudulent election. President Trump not only believed that happened, he knew it happened. He had seen it happen. And tens of millions of Americans agree with him to this day.
But that's not true, is it? We've just got to be clear. What
yes,
you're just saying,
true.
It didn't happen.
Yes, it is. We can go through the facts. We can go through the states.
Donald Trump was told that by everybody who did it. We can go through how the Constitution
was thrown out the window for COVID. We can go through all of these things. This was a crooked election.
Well, I don't mind you voicing your opinion, but I have to tell our viewers that what you're saying is not true.
Look, I know you guys don't have the First Amendment over there, but we still have the First Amendment here. And President Trump has every right to voice these complaints, to voice these objections. And the First Amendment is not just about speech. It is about action. You can petition the government with your political grievances.
Now that's interesting.
That is what President Trump did under the law.
Can we just focus on that for a second? Because this is quite a key part of your defense, isn't it? That these were First Amendment rights of Donald Trump simply expressing his opinion of what was going on. Now that is being criticized today by lawyers on the other side as saying, no, the indictment accepts that freedom of speech allows you to lie, but it does not allow you to then put into action your lies, which is what the former president did by trying to pressure officials and his vice president to overturn the results.
This is a banana republic. How many times in how many elections have Democrats objected to the electoral count in Congress? They did it in 2016. In 1960, John F. Kennedy was awarded the state of Hawaii after the fact, after the election, which was only decided by a couple hundred votes, because there was a dispute over the election and they put up alternate electors. And once the court litigated that, they awarded those electors to John F. Kennedy after they had initially awarded them to Richard Nixon. So there's a historical precedent here. Everything was out in the open. We were following the Constitution, following the rule of law, and there was nothing wrong with this. And again, if criticizing the results of an election or saying an election was rigged and stolen was a crime, Hillary Clinton would be in jail.
It's not that.
The Democrats
it's actually trying to overturn
jail,
it.
And they, unlike us, had no evidence to back up their claims.
Do you worry at all? I mean, we've seen how violent a minority of Trump supporters can be. We saw that on January the 6th. Do you worry that what you're saying and the way you're pumping out information and personal attacks on Jack Smith, the attorney leading this prosecution, is in danger of inciting more violence?
I am very worried about the unequal weights and measures, the two standards of justice. I mean, are you worried about the violence of the political left that burnt American cities to the ground all throughout the summer of 2020 and next to none were prosecuted? I mean, it's just the two standards here. We have a sitting person
it's not
in
true
the
that
White
next to none were
House
prosecuted.
who's
There were plenty of
accepted.
prosecution.
Absolutely, it's true. Were any held in solitary confinement for a year before trial, like people who attended the January 6th protests? No, they were not. So this is not equal justice. And right now, we have someone sitting in the White House who's been credibly accused of taking tens of millions of dollars of bribes, and yet there's no special counsel, there's no leaks, there's nothing.
I suppose
there's
my point is, do you think we could see more of that? You know, do you think Trump supporters could take matters into their own hands if he goes to jail?
This is such a false media narrative.
No, it's not.
How
It's just
many
a question.
Trump rallies have we had? No, it's propaganda.
If he goes to jail,
it is propaganda.
No, it's not. It's a question.
Trump supporters are the most
What you do is
peaceful.
propaganda. What I do is ask questions. So I'm asking you, if he goes to jail, what do you think Trump supporters, the kinds of people who went to the Congress,
do you
will
think that's good for the leading so-called democracy in the world to be falsely imprisoning not just a former president, but the leader in all the polls running
if
for
it's false
president of the United
imprisonment,
States?
no,
Do you
it'd be
think
terrible.
that's healthy
Of course.
for a constitutional
If it was false
republic?
imprisonment, it would be terrible. But if it's imprisonment for breaking the
It
law,
is
well,
false
then that's the
imprisonment.
law.
Name the crimes. Name the crimes, because I don't see a single crime in any of these sham indictments. There's
Have you read
thought
it?
crimes. There's for disagree. Of course, I've read it, and it's total bunk. There's no facts or law. Conspiracy of rights. They're going back to the 1900s to try to concoct a sham case against President Trump when he had every right, again, to contest a fraudulent election, which Democrats have been doing, contesting elections from the beginning of time. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no facts, there's no law to back it up. And that's why Jack Smith, he's already been thrown out by the Supreme Court unanimously before. And you better believe he's going to be thrown out.
Thank you so much for your time. I hope you'll come back and talk to us more when the case progresses. Thank you, Liz Harrington.